We're back on again. It's Wednesday. It's time for another
session.
Yeah, another session. We're actually going to be doing a fairly intense run through of the differences between organic, biodynamic, and preservative-free wines, and what this means and what it means for our consumers. So this will get a little bit technical, a little bit scientific, a little bit chemical driven, and it's going to be a little bit esoteric as well. So you're just going to have to bear with us for this. There will be a lot of discussion about facts and figures, and there's going to be a lot of opinions thrown around that can even be apocryphal. So we're just going to go through it. But anyway, I'll introduce the people with me today. So we've got Pat, my novice wine drinker, who is obviously drinking a nice beer. I'm also having a very nice... What are you having, Pat?
This is actually from a boutique company in New South Wales called Tui's.
Tui's. Oh, it's a craft brewery.
Yeah, it's apparently one of their new beers.
Yeah, so I understand it's one of their new beers they've created. How lovely. I'm drinking the latest release from Black Hops, their Caribbean Haze, which is their tropical IPA. It's lovely. Quite fruity. It's got lots of,
pineapple.
Pineapple, guava, that kind of thing to it. Dan, what have you got?
Golden Stout from the Big Shed.
Big Shed.
It is golden gay time on the nose.
In a glass.
Make sure I go and buy one and eat it.
Yeah.
It's excellent.
Yes. So, as the first part of this might be a little bit intense, we decided to have a beer to clean our palates to get ready for the wine. But I'll just run you through quickly what we're doing. So we're talking about organic wine to start with. So organic wine, it's any wine made from grapes grown with the principles of organic farming. And this means the exclusion of all artificial chemical fertilizers, pesticides, fungicides, and herbicides. So no DDT.
Yep.
Right. So when we talk about organic, that is what we mean. Okay, that is literally what it is about. So we're going to talk a little bit how to get the organic certification, but I'm going to ask quickly, Pat. What I've just said then, what do you think that would limit in, or what would that problems would be caused by that from farming, from the farming point of view?
Imagine most of the chemicals you get for pesticides and things like that would make your crops quite vulnerable and probably limit production. And the expense, I imagine, would be extreme, given that I think a lot of the the organic side chemicals or the organic things you can use are quite expensive.
So Dan?
Or cost-wise?
Well, just generally. So as a farmer, you decide to become organic. Organic is actually a very good, cheap option because you are removing all of the expensive, artificial chemicals.
Yeah.
In your fungicides, herbicides,
it takes a fair while to get the actual organic
certification. Yep.
Which is also then probably quite expensive to keep on your bottles.
Yep.
The wine, I'm sure, is much better off for it.
Yeah. Actually, why would you say that?
Just being more natural without the chemicals getting sprayed on everything. You'll have more natural wildlife, bees, pollination. I just think all around healthier.
Yep. So the actual vineyard itself, you think will be a lot healthier without the chemical intervention.
You'd probably be using more natural fertilisers, and you'd be putting back into the ground rather than sucking it out every year.
And also, isn't there a thing with organic? Because I'm pretty sure it's the same. I don't know if it's the same with cattle, because I used to be a butcher.
Yep.
To get the organic certification, you needed to have a property that was certified organic, and it had to have been the previous owners as well, and I think it had to be up to 50 years.
Not quite that long, but yeah, I see where you're going with it.
Yeah.
Yep. That is actually important as part of the certification. But when it comes to it, so let's just take wine production as a business, and the very basis of it is growing grapes. So why would you bother? Because you know how expensive, Roundup and DDT and all that sort of costs. Why would you use that on there if there was cheaper things out there to use?
Well, it's probably not cheaper things.
Not as effective.
Not as effective is probably a big one. So not as effective. You are really open to the vagaries of what's happening around you. So what that means is if we have a really humid growing period, what happens in high humidity areas? You get mildew, mold, under the, especially on the underside of the leaves.
So they use fans and stuff in the
Yeah.
vineyards?
Well, the fans are generally used to mitigate cold weather, but you need to have a really good strong breeze coming through. And if that breeze is mitigated by El Nino or La Nina, then you can also struggle with that. So therefore, you're really leaving yourself open to a lot of problems in growing grapes. So every winemaker I've ever talked to loves the idea of being totally organic. But every winemaker that I've dealt with in a region that can have quite a difficult climate, realises that they sometimes do have to spray. And as soon as you spray once, that's it.
You're no longer organic.
Your organic certification is gone, and you have to restart the whole process again.
Is it more of a marketing kind of, like, I imagine like just having the organic label on the bottle would be a big plus for some people, so
yep.
Would it be it'd be worth going into organic just for the marketing side of it?
So, okay, let's take our shop as a really good example. If you're looking, we've broken our shop into varietals, so Shiraz, Cabernet, Red Blends, Grenache, Pinot Noir, Merlot, What are the M2 bays?
Preservative-free and organic.
Preservative-free and organic. So therefore, marketing-wise, vitally important.
But compared to the whole stock holdings of wine we have, that's very little.
It is. It's a small corner. Well, it's still a fair size. So
it's the most amount of questions I get asked by a customer though. Like,
okay.
Most wine people are like, oh, I want a red for this kind of dinner.
Yep.
Whereas like, oh, I want a preservative free. I want it like certified organic, and then they'll go into like a myriad of questions.
This is one we're going to do another one on vegan later because.
Do we have to?
Look, no. So there's some great wine in there, but the thing is, you'll actually really like it because a vegan, for my mind, vegan is more of a marketing term.
As long as I'm still allowed to eat pizza.
You are still allowed to eat pizza in the Hobbit.
Meat while we're doing it.
Absolutely fine. But for me, vegan is a bit more of a marketing term. What vegan really says, as far as I can see, what they're really saying is we don't fine and filter our wine. Mm-hmm. And if you don't fine and filter your wine, you can put the thing, because there's no milk products and no egg products or no fish products added into it or used to filter and fine it, you are now vegan. So you can choose to do that at any point, but you've got to take the good with the bad. And this is what all systems have. So organics, you are going to save a lot of money on spending on chemical fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides, but you're still going to be open more to the vagaries. So in Barossa particularly, Barossa, McLaren Vale, not so much West Australia. West Australia's got a pretty good climate, maritime climate, with strong breezes coming through consistently, keeping the vineyards fairly clean. In central areas of New South Wales, you probably struggle a little bit. But again, Mornington will be, a lot more of those clean breezes coming through. They could probably get away with it.
I think we had 3 vegans watching. There was 7 people, now there's only 4.
Oh, sorry. Sorry to offend your veganism.
You're offended.
Yes. But that's to say that what actually happens is you really have to, if you're in a really hard area, and South Australia is quite a difficult area to grow because it's so hot, it can get so humid, the very change, you need to have the option to do that. And that's what the wineries do. They want to have the option to not lose the entire crop. So, now that we've discussed quickly about what organics is, let's just pour out the first one, which for us is going to be Kaleski's Mopper Shiraz.
I haven't had the Clary's quite a while. I haven't tried the Mopper in a long time.
We have had quite a few sales on this class today. For those who had to get other wines for this, the wine that I've given you is actually, one is organic in conversion and the other one is from the same winery, but it's actually a different blend. So both of these apply to the same wineries. They're both Barossan as well. So organic farming systems, they take 3 years or more to achieve. Okay, so what that means is if you decide to go organic, you have to, first of all, submit a request to go organic. So that will then look at your previous history. So you literally have to, you've got the criteria is now, you should contact a particular thing called the AQIS, the Accreditation Services, and discuss the criteria for organic or biodynamic certification, your certification needs, export market destination requirements. So if you're exporting to the US, to claim you're organic, you actually have to go through a lot more stringent regulations. Because
international guidelines.
Yeah, there's actually, because if you're selling into an American market claiming organic, you have to be certified organic as of the American market certification.
Yeah.
Costs associated with the certification, procedure and timing before certification can be granted. So if you've been on a heavily cropped field or cropped vineyard that's used a whole bunch of chemicals previously, it will take probably 10 years to go through, because you will have to get soil testing done regularly. And by the way, all the costs involved in this is your expense. So every time you get a soil test done, every time you get surveying done, every time you get anything done, it's going to cost you every single time. So if you get the first soil test through and it goes, no, you've got too many high levels of whatever chemical that's in there, like a Roundup chemical or a DDT or something like that. No, you can't have that. You can apply, but you won't get certified. You won't be able to return the next part. So therefore, you've got to fill that out. You've also got to obtain a copy of a farming, organic, and processing standards, which you must be compliant to. I actually had a look at the book itself, or the document itself. It's about 160 pages. Only part of it applies to wine. A lot of it applies to things like beef cattle, which you'll talk about, chickens, etc. But it's really, really important to understand the whole book. You've got to read the whole book. You can't sort of pick and choose. Once you actually decide to apply for it, then you've got to actually understand what the organic standards mean. And you actually, as in the farmer, have to identify to the company we're talking about that you understand organic farming principles. Okay. Now, on a guess, what are the farming principles you can think of? So, if you get, what happens if you get mold and mildew suddenly hitting your vineyards? What do? You throw your hands up and go, "Oh, I can't do it," or do you?
There'd be another way. There'd be another way to tackle it. You probably have to.
What would you do?
Do something natural that you can spray it with, probably. Or
Yep, there is. It's a thing called Bordeaux blend. It's copper sulfate.
that's probably not like
Sulfur John Bland.
John Brown. Yeah.
Valentine's.
There's 6
Six
on the
bottles.
counter.
Yeah, it's all good. I
Good.
just wanted to let you know.
That's nice.
If I did anything different.
No.
Cool.
Did you charge him for 6?
Yes.
That's
all we
you've
did.
done
That's all we
exactly
did.
right there.
Okay. Again, thank you.
Obviously, we run a shop whilst at the same time doing this.
Yes.
So what was I saying? The
You can spray it with
copper
sulfur.
sulfate.
copper sulfate,
which doesn't sound
called
pretty.
Bordeaux. It actually makes the vineyards look blue.
Oh, okay.
It's copper, but it is actually a natural product, and that's there to allay mildew and some fungus, mainly mildew, I think it is for that one. So, so if you've got issues with aphids or insects, or in American sharpshooters, what would you? By the way, sharpshooters in America aren't people with rifles, although that seems to be very common these days. There's actually a little insect called a sharpshooter. It actually goes in and damages your vineyards. So, how do you mitigate that?
Kantos.
Well done, you've just entered a noxious species into your vineyard. You are now the friendly person that everyone hates. Okay.
Well, there'd be natural type of traps, I guess, something you can put out.
You want to know
liquid in them and they fly in there and drown themselves.
It's a start, but I mean, you're talking about like acres,
a lot.
acres and acres.
Yeah.
So the first one, rose bushes at the end of your end of your trellises.
What, they don't like roses?
No, that's the first thing they infest.
Oh, okay.
When you look at your rose bushes at the end of your trellises, you'll actually see the infestation start there, because they like that one. Oh, here
Thanks,
comes Jen. Oh, Jen.
There you go, babies.
She's our hero.
This is what you should put on your menu board, don't
We want
you?
to see this on the menu, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Putting that together each night for 20 people would probably be
Yeah.
time consuming.
No. Anyway. So, rose bushes at the end of this is a classic. You'll see rose bushes at the end of almost all the wine vineyards that grow grapes.
Organic or
Anyway.
anyway.
Anyway. Barossa has had it for years, from McLaren Vale.
It probably helps the aesthetic.
Yeah, it is. It's a real thing. That's why you've got some places like Grant Burgess vineyards, which has got the Trinity, his GSM, he's got rose bushes in all of his blocks there. So basically, they're the first things to get infested. So basically, just driving past on your little quad,
That's a warning.
you can see, oh shit, I've got something coming up. So then what do you do? Well, there's actually several things you can do to stop insects. One of them is really cool. Yes, it's expensive, and I mean very, very expensive. What you do is you can actually get pheromones set up.
Attract them somewhere else. Or,
Yeah.
Or
You set up a pheromone thing. There's two ways of doing it. One, they can set up a pheromone trap, like you said, which is really quite effective. It's really, really good. The other part is that they can actually get, using the same technology, they can actually, I've got to get this right because it's so bizarre that I was just gobsmacked when I learned about it. Essentially what it is all the females won't go near the males. Just won't go near them.
Sounds like
already happens to me anyway.
They have high school for
Yeah.
So that literally what happens. So it's actually really, really cool. You can actually do, and also there's ones where they will introduce other species that don't eat your grapes into those vineyards, like you're talking about your cane toads.
That was a joke.
Yeah.
Good joke.
Yeah.
Actually happens.
Yeah, I know. Well,
But these things they're a short life as well.
Yeah.
So what they'll go in, eat a whole bunch of the aphids, etc. Again, they're using natural ways to do this.
Yeah. What if they paint a bunch of like neighborhood kids with those little like tennis rackets that zap the flies and then just go around and hit them all individually?
We're talking aphids.
Yeah.
Tiny little
Tiny.
ones.
Good luck on that. I'd take that job just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
So that's the first part of it. You've got mold and mildew to deal with. You've got aphids to deal with. Not to mention you've got things like nematodes or the worms that go and attack the roots. All of these things are stuff that affect vineyards. So once you've actually figured out what you need to do, you apply for your certification, undergo a farm inspection. So an application costs money. Farm inspection costs money. Site inspection by an experienced organic farm inspector, and there's a questionnaire that you must fill out and return it to verify the details of your farming. Then you receive a farm inspection report, which you've got to pay for. You enter the organic certification contract, which you've got to pay for. The periods, obtain the rights to the word organic in conversion will take at least 12 months. To obtain certification for fully organic will take at least 3 years. That's if essentially the farmland you're on, has never had any chemicals on it, have never had any pesticides or any inorganic fertilizer.
What's mean in conversion? If you've proved that there's no pesticides on your land,
You haven't.
you haven't.
No, what you've done is you've got soil tests, farming practices, and all the rest of it. And the soil tests have said that the amount of chemical in this is at this particular level, which is under the amount that you can have.
Yeah.
You're allowed to then do it. But then they've got to leave you 3 years because it's not just you. You have neighbours.
Yeah.
If your neighbours decide to aerial spray or randomly spray
Come over the
and
fence.
can come over the fence
You bugger.
when you get your test, because it takes, remember, every year you've got to get your test done.
And you pay for that yourself.
You pay for it yourself, yeah.
The overheads in that style of farming just seem massive. Do you even make it back in the... Well, you must, because there's a need for it, but I just can't imagine, like, the amount of tests to do yearly and then...
In a business situation, as in if you're a large company running this, probably not. But because it's more about ethical concerns by most of the farmers. The government doesn't grant anything for organic certification, but they do grant things for sustainability.
Yeah.
So if you can be sustainable, you can kind of mitigate your sustainable and organic that way at the same time. And what I mean by sustainability is things like your winery replaces all the lights with LEDs. Government gives you money for that. You decide to go fully solar power, the government will give you money for that. And then you can sell money back to the grid. Sell the power back to the grid. If you construct a dam that has a natural catchment to it or whatever, you can become sustainable. So if you have a zero carbon footprint, you've done everything to be sustainable, you yearly submit your reports, you can get grants from the government to do this. This is also one of the arguing points that China has had with Australia, which is why we're undergoing a bit of a stoush with China at the moment. They're claiming that things like this are actually grants to our farmers to make them produce cheaper.
No, they're just buying it for fun.
Yeah, essentially. So, but it will take at least 3 years, and that's from a green site that has never been touched before.
Yeah.
That's growing grapes. You get it within 3 years. If you had a property previously, it can take 10 years, and that's probably the average of, I think, 7.
Yeah.
It's not easy to get. So, what we're going to look now is quickly at Koleski from Barossa. These guys have been organics as long as I've known them. So that's been 12 years now at least. They have made organic wine the whole period. In fact, they make the organic. Their winery is the one that does all the organic stuff. Heart of the Barossa, which is another organic one, will do it as well. You're concerning me some days. This is their Mopper Shiraz. So what we're looking for now is we're trying to see. We have an idea of what a Shiraz already tastes like. So now we want to have a look at what organic does. So, these are very good winemakers, but then again, most of the guys in Barossa are very good winemakers. These are coming out of a particular region called Mopper, which is a good region to come from grapes to come out of. A lot of the Greenock and Linduk regions are quite lovely, or Eden Valley, which is a much higher category area, a much higher altitude area. So let's have a look at the wine and just see what it does.
Established in 1853.
So what's it say on the back of the bottle there, Dan?
Oh, too much to read. Lots. It's a whole script.
Wow.
So just a lot of their family history, basically. 6 generations of Koleskis since 1853. Mopper Shiraz pays homage to the Mopper district, if I didn't know. So Mopper's a district, not just a made-up name.
No, definitely a district.
District's been home to Koleski Vineyards and Winery. It's the 1800s. Actually, in the 1800s, it was a flourishing settlement of pioneering. Why don't they make these things flat? A flat bottle would be easier to read.
You just want a grant sort of thing with it, like the triangle look to it.
Flourishing settlement, pioneering. Mopper Public schools. There are a few schools in the region, so local parents established the Mopper Public School in 1873 to give their children a formal education. We're a little bit off winery now, we're just talking about their heritage, really.
So it's a bit of a heritage bottle.
Yeah.
So, okay, just on the very basics of this, it's an extremely good Shiraz. If you're having the claries, then it is an extremely good GSM. We drink claries quite a lot. In fact, we drink it fairly religiously.
There is a slight blend in it, but it does say something about the wine at the bottom.
Oh, good, finally. What's it say?
So it's sourced entirely from a selection of Koleski Mopper vineyards.
Yep.
The Shiraz has a trace of Petit Verdot and Viognier added, giving it a contemporary edge.
Cool.
I haven't seen many, Viognier in, Shiraz.
Yep.
Is it a classic kind of?
Mm-hmm. Shiraz Viognier is actually... So the amount of Viognier that goes from Shiraz is only 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
But it brings much more lifted notes. You'll find it brings violets into it for me. So stick your nose in there. If you get any sort of violet character to it, that's usually Viognier.
I couldn't quite pick what that was. There was something on it.
Yep. So exceptionally good Shiraz, really lovely. The other Shiraz that I've given to Pete, for example, it's an organic in conversion at the moment, is exceptionally good. It's out of the Stonewall Vineyards, which is the classic vineyards from Peter Lehman's stuff. It's just beautiful. Now,
What's Koleski as well?
No, that was not long. So, anyway, looking at this wine, bright, clean, clear. I'd say I don't think it's been fined and filtered.
Almost stains the wine.
Yeah,
it's
really
nice.
Yeah, it's
rich colour.
very rich in colour, lovely perfume.
Is it vegan
But
friendly?
probably actually. I should imagine it's. Let's have a look. So it is organic, certified, and biodynamic. Oh, well there you go. It is biodynamic too. I didn't think it was. Contains sulfites. Says nothing, and it's vegan.
Oh yeah.
So because it's unfined, unfiltered,
Yeah.
which we talked about, it can be a vegan classified wine.
So how do they just let it naturally settle and then and rack it off the top?
Yep, the rack off the top and don't get down.
Yeah. I wonder what they do with the bottom half.
Polish.
I guess it would go back into the vineyard as
now we're talking about biodynamics. Let's go on to that in a minute. So, it's nothing really, like the fruit is very pretty, it's very clean, despite the fact it's unfined and unfiltered, it's very clear. Now that we know it's actually vegan friendly too, I reckon we could smash that through. With
really deep.
Yeah, beautiful colour. That's the winemaking itself though. The winemaking is great.
Who is the winemaker out there?
I want to say Jeff. Troy Gillespie. We actually know another guy called Sean, who's the cousin of Troy.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure how friendly they are with small families in Ross and stuff, but if it's got the name Gillespie on it, generally I will generally enjoy it. It's great. They do actually a full range. They do a thing called the Pyrathon, the Blue Mark, Zeitgeist. They've actually got a lot more wines than you think. And one of my favourites was always the Pyrathon. I always loved their Pyrathon, which is actually a blend of their three fruits, three vineyards that they've got. They've got one at Ebenezer, one at Canunga Hill, and one at Mopper, and they blend those three parcels into a Shiraz. These are all single vineyard little things. That's quite lovely. So, what do you think? Just can you tell any difference from any other Shiraz that we've had previously? Does it stand out as being that's organic?
It doesn't taste as intense as I was picturing, but from what I'm used to.
Mm-hmm.
It tastes like a normal Shiraz.
It is. Yeah. The thing is though, at the end of the day, they've made more of an ethical choice to do this, allowed themselves to be attacked by the vagaries of nature, and then in a really hard year, and let's just take 2011 as an example, they're totally reliant on bunch selection, so they might not be able to produce quite as much. They will obviously need to be really aware of what's happening in the vineyard, so they need to be in the vineyard more often, walking the vineyard to make sure that the wines are being produced correctly. So that is organics in a nutshell. Notice we've not said the word sulfites on anything yet.
No.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
It'd be very. I think this would have very minor sulfites.
No, it's still listed as having
it's
sulfites.
listed as added, but I don't think they would add much at all.
No, well, yeah.
You don't get that sulfury on the nose when you're opening the bottle.
No, definitely not. So we'll go to the next one, which is actually from McLaren Vale. So this is Walter Clappers's Hedonist wines.
We met Walter.
We like Walter. Yeah. We like Walter a lot. Now, and we like Walter for personal reasons as well. But that being said, though, Walter was the guy who first introduced me into biodynamics.
Danielle. Hello, daughter.
Oh, she got more jokes, has she?
My friend said his non-alcoholic wine was delicious. I said he had no proof.
That's probably very true.
Yeah. I wonder if she means proof like alcohol proof.
Yes, that's what I think she does too.
Sad.
Dad joke time again. But anyway, so Walter introduced me to biodynamics. If you ever meet Walter, the dude is a very scientifically minded fellow. Really is. If you want to talk to him about anything esoteric or hippie-esque or whatever, he won't, on meeting you and sort of just chatting to you, he's very business, straight down the line. This is what it is. This is what I'm doing. After a little while, when you talk to him, if he sort of opens, if you get on the same wavelength and have a chat, he begins to open up and talk to you about what biodynamics means and why he does it. So this dude used to own Ingleby wines. Ingleby was a fairly big name throughout the late 80s, early 90s. He sold his ownership of that to South Corp, I think it was. South Corp. That obviously went on, and Ingleby is still around today, as far as I know, being sold by Treasury Wine Estates. Okay. So
I haven't heard of it.
He hasn't got any stake in it anymore. From that, though, he decided to get his own vineyards in McLaren Vale and decided to go through biodynamics. Now, when I asked him why, his answer to me was the purity of the fruit. He said time and time again he had dealt with wines and wineries that the purity of the fruit wasn't there. With biodynamics, it always seemed to be there. The basis of biodynamics is a healthy, good biomassed vineyard. So I've just used some words there that I don't even know if you understand. So I'm going to try to simplify it down. It can be quite difficult. So I'll actually read the definition and then you guys can work from there. So biodynamics is a holistic, or of the whole, ecological and ethical approach to farming, gardening, food and nutrition. It's rooted in the work of a scientist and philosopher, Dr. Rudolf Steiner, who in 1924 lectured to farmers about a new way to integrate scientific understanding with the recognition of the spirit in nature. So biodynamics is more in common with other organics. In fact, it is organics, but it's a step beyond organics. So whilst you have to follow the fully organic principles that we talked about, no artificial or chemical sprays, no, it's gone beyond that. Essentially, the way it was explained to me originally was anything that comes out of the vineyard has to go back into the vineyard. So when you prune your vines, all those cuttings and prunings get mulched down and put back into the vineyard. Rather than using
obviously the fruit has to go somewhere though.
Well, the fruit goes out, there's usually an undercrop, like legumes, to re-nitrify the soil. And what you do is then you mulch those up, and they go back into the soil as well. Whatever you put in, whatever's in the vineyard gets put back in the vineyard. You don't throw it away. That's what they're saying.
So even after the grapes have been squashed and everything, and you've got all the skins and that all scraped out, that would get probably dried out and put back out as mulch and stuff.
So anything that comes out goes back into the vineyard. What you're trying to do is, we're going to talk now about inside this block of land, there is so much what's called biomass, so carbon based products, so like plants, animals, vegetables, whatever. It's all in this block. That biomass and the ecological structures around it, so that means that all the insects that live there, the bees, we were talking about before, bees, birds, anything else in there. Worms is actually a good one. Worms is a fairly important one too. All that biomass is actually improved. And we're talking down to the microbial level, where you want to have the same yeast strains and the same cultures of yeast, as well as the same, and I won't say molds and stuff like that, but all the microbes. The microbes.
That's what goes into making up
what goes into making the whole area. So you're really focusing more on creation of a good terroir than you are on trying to keep things out. So if you look at it from a fertiliser point of view, what's fertiliser there for? It's pulling in chemical nitrous into the soil. If you put sprays into it, then what you're doing is you're trying to stop something happening. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to build your biomass naturally, so therefore it's more resilient for things that affect it. So if mould and mildew come in, the crop itself is healthy enough to fight off or to not worry about the mould and mildew. So mould grafts itself onto a sickly vine much more easily than it does a healthy vine. So therefore, the vine is really healthy, it won't actually have the same effect. Right. Now, this is where we're going from scientific, and by the way, Walter chose this method because he found this worked consistently. A healthier vineyard meant healthier grapes, which means a better wine and therefore a more consistent thing. Even in really, really hard years. If the vineyard can survive through that hard years, it can still produce a crop that's actually saleable. So,
it makes it stronger.
Essentially, yeah, that's what it comes down to. So, biodynamics uses some compost additives and some field sprays, but not what you're thinking. So,
I'm sorry, she's at it again.
No, what's she doing?
Can you think of any red wine puns? Bet your ass I can.
Oh my God! You know she came from your loins, don't you?
Not mine, but not exactly. Oh dear. She says she'll stop now, but she never will.
You're driving us down to Brisbane next week.
Oh yeah, road trip.
So, I'm going to read this only because if I say it, I'll stuff it up. So, biodynamic agriculture uses various herbal and mineral additives for compost additives from field sprays. These are prepared using methods that are more akin to sympathetic magic than agronomy, such as burying ground quartz stuffed into the horn of a cow, which are said to harvest the cosmic forces of nature, of the soil.
Pat's face just went, what?
Yeah, I've tapped out.
You've tapped out on this one.
Yeah.
Rightio. I am going to tell you, this is a really weird opinion, and don't judge me too harshly for it. So, we were talking about biodynamics, and we were talking about what's called vortexing. What vortexing is you get a particular vat, you put that cow horn product we're talking about, it's called 501. We take that 501, put it into water to dilute it so we can then put the spray out. So we're taking cow poo that's been shoved into a cow horn with mineral, buried under a particular moon, allowed to ferment essentially, which means it's creating its own little biomass of microbes in there. Takes it out, put it into water to separate it out, so therefore it's fertilising, and we vortex. Now this is a bit of an esoteric thing. You vortex in a particular rotation at a particular time of the day, under a particular astrological time, to draw the energy of the universe into that product, and then you spray it like rain. I know you've tapped out. I'm so sorry.
My chakras are not equipped for this.
It's just not aligned enough for it. Okay. Whilst that sounds really, really amusing, it is literally just part of the setup for biodynamics. You do this. I will say, for me even, that just sounds a little bit. This is. I live in Melania, and that sounds that far out for me. But I'm not going to deny the fact that the wines he's produced, and we've had them every year, have been right on point. Clarity, the fruit is just excellent. So
Is there a method to the madness?
There is a method to the madness. Here's a bit of a weird scientific thing for you. If you put two magnetic poles, and by the way, if anyone online here is a scientist and wants to dispute this, it's absolutely fine. In university, we had a not an oscilloscope. You could see magnetic waves essentially. You could oscilloscope, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, magnet here, magnet
If there's
here.
any scientists out there, at least tell us what he's trying to say.
Yeah, that'll be good. Magnet here, magnet there. Okay, and you could see the magnetic waves. They come off, sort of like waves essentially. They were interacting with each other, but not really doing anything. Okay? Yeah. So imagine now these are two planets. Okay, their gravitational forces are not affecting each other at all. If you put a magnet in between them, suddenly all of their magnetic waves overlap and actually draws them together. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. Essentially, this is the kind of thing that they're claiming to work with biodynamics. Is that it's a way to draw down upon the energy of the universe. I am not going to get into an argument because I
swear
am
to God,
not.
if they bring a planet down on us, I'm going to be so unhappy.
Thanos.
Yeah.
Straight into that horn.
Anyway, we're going to walk through the actual preparations. So if you are a biodynamic farmer, you'll know these preparations. First one is preparation 500. It's a humus mixture prepared by filling a cow's horn with cow manure, burying it in the ground 60 centimetres below the surface in autumn, and left to decompose during winter to recover for use as a fertiliser in the following spring. 501, it was 500 I was talking about before. 501 is crushed powdered quartz stuffed into a cow horn, buried in the ground in springtime and taken out in autumn. Can be mixed with 500, but it's usually prepared on its own. The mixture is sprayed under very low pressure over crops during the wet season. Supposedly an antifungal.
I don't think these cows are happy with this.
May not be. So
Antifungal, that's interesting.
Yeah, so quartz and cow poo is an antifungal. I'm not even.
I wouldn't want to eat anything that had cow poo on it either.
Well, I don't know. Let's face it. So, compost preparations. He recommends an employment of herbs, which are frequently used in alternative medicines. Many of the herbs are references used in organic practices to make foliar fertilisers, green manure, or composting. 502. Yarrow blooms, stuffed into the urinary bladders of red deer, placed in the sun during summer, buried in the ground during winter, and retrieved in spring. Oh, that's going to be... I prefer the cowhorn so far. Yeah. 503 is chamomile blossom, stuffed into small intestines of cattle. It's going to happen with the cows now. Buried in humus-rich earth in autumn, retrieved in spring.
These are not going to be vegan friendly.
No, well, they're really not.
Because red deer are an introduced species, and so is cows.
Yeah. Well, remember, this is written in Europe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought red deer were from America.
Started in 1924. I thought Europe.
Oh, yeah.
There are several of these products. I'm not going to read them all because I'm beginning to laugh, and I really shouldn't be laughing. So, the approach also considers the lunar and astrological influences on the soil and plant development, when to cultivate, when to harvest, when to taste. Now,
that kind of makes a little bit of sense.
So it makes sense, like seasonal, like you plant in a certain season and harvest in a certain season.
This aspect of biodynamics has been termed astrological and pseudoscientific in nature. So now I'm going to talk to you about a personal experience. In the calendar for biodynamics, you have root, leaf, flower, and fruit days. So they break them down to those. And they happen in blocks. So I think it's 4, I can't remember exactly the number. But if you look it up, you can find the calendar for it. Root and leaf days are not great days to taste because they're sort of the quieter periods where the wine won't taste quite as good. Or
are you going to root a leaf day?
We could root a leaf day, yes. No, I have no idea. I thought you were being crude.
I don't know.
However, fruit and flower days are really good for tasting. And those days change, not at midnight, but at 11 o'clock. So we've literally discussed this and had a joke about it. And in fact, what happened was Walter grabbed me and said, try these wines before 11 o'clock. Mm-hmm. I said, why is that? Because we're on a fruit day today, and after 11 o'clock it becomes a root day. And I'm like, yeah, 11 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, I don't understand. Okay, that's fine. So I did. And I found it to be absolutely lovely.
Before 11.
Before 11. Mind you, drinking in the morning has always been a favourite thing of
yeah.
mine. So we had a lovely
emergency problem.
I think I think Catwoman just came in.
Yeah. Can't change the key. I didn't look. I missed it. Should have got it on film. Live. I think that's on the camera cut out.
Okay. So, what I actually found was that the wine tasted really good. We then went on to other wineries after that.
Yeah.
And the wines just weren't bright. Now, we can talk about, it's just your opinion or it's just whatever, but for me, Walter's wines that we had at 10:30 were really bright, pretty on point. The wines that we had after that, which were from really good wineries, just seemed a bit dull. Now, I don't know whether that could be a psychological thing or whatever, but it always sort of struck me as, it stuck in my head, and so we used to make jokes, it must be a root day today, or must be...
Yeah.
And that was literally what we were talking about. So now we've talked about organic wines, and, well, like the wine now, what do you taste, just quickly?
I found it a lot earthier on like first taste of it. The nose was a little bit earthier. Still rich McLaren Vale fruit.
Yep.
As it should
lots
be.
of blue fruit, lots of dark, there's a bit of chocolate.
A little bit of spice, not great spice. little bit of it's not aniseed, it's more licorice.
I'll go with star anise, yeah.
At the back, it's sort of wrapped around the palate.
Yeah. Lovely wine. Actually, it's one of my favourite wines, and I do take the same quite regularly. Right. Again, think is knowing that Brocken Shack, for example, or Laughing Jack, wine-wise, do you see anything apart from the regionality? Is there anything that you think would bring us as a brighter, more on point? The only thing I say is the consistency is much better. These wines have been so consistent for so many years. Yep, every year. Even in really hard years, I've always found Walter's wines to be consistently excellent. You know, I can't fault. So, in the end, my very, very personal opinion is, I believe or disbelieve. For me, the guy that walks his vineyards more often, spends more time looking at the grapes and the quality of grapes, the more effort that goes into keeping his vineyard clean, healthy, with enough biomass and enough fertilizing, I guess.
It's a little bit of magic, really.
A little magic, but it's also, what's the word for it? When you are really competent and you are really thinking about what you're doing, that seems to work much, much better. So it's like anything. 90% of the work is probably in the preparation. Yep.
First, if you're going to paint a motorcycle tank and you don't sand the damn thing, you're not going to get a good job. It needs to be prepped, and everything needs to be just right before you even bother trying to make that final product.
Yep. And for me, the more conscientiousness, that's probably the biggest one for me. The more conscientious you are about your grapes, the more often you walk them. I mean, because you can only do certain things to the vineyards according to the Steiner principle. So therefore, in the periods where you can't do things, you have to be really aware of what's going wrong where. So when you actually go back, you can actually attend to that issue very quickly. So irrespective of if you believe in biodynamics, if you believe that organics is better, whatever it is, if you're in the vineyard more, I think you're going to get a better quality of product every single time. Every time. So now let's go to the biggest question that's asked by all of our consumers. I want an organic wine because I'm allergic to sulfites. What does this mean? I will pass it to you, Dan.
Well, for a start, you try to explain to them that sulfites are actually a natural occurring chemical that is already on grape skins generally.
Yeah, during the fermentation process they occur, yeah.
Yeah. But for me, it's the customers don't want the chemicals. What is it, 220 and
224.
224. So that's when we have to go looking for preservative free as well.
So, first major thing is, we were talking about organic and biodynamic wines. They still use sulfites. They probably don't use quite as much sulfites, but they do use sulfites. So therefore, organic wines are not preservative-free wines. Biodynamic wines are not preservative-free wines. Preservative-free wines technically should have 0 sulfites. Problem is, sulfites are naturally occurring through fermentation from grape, so therefore are going to be there. So no added preservatives, or NAP, is probably more likely what you're talking about. So let's have a quick talk. Sulfur dioxide, preservative 220 and 224, which is potassium metabisulfite. What are the main differences you reckon? What's the difference between 220, which is sulfur dioxide, and potassium metabisulfate is preservative 224. What's the difference? Because I've had people go, oh, I'm allergic to 224 but not 220.
2 points.
No, what do you reckon it is?
One's a sulfite, one's a phosphate. So what's the difference between that? Powder and they're both powder.
One's a
sulfur dioxide.
One's a gas, one's a
gas,
one's a powder.
one's a liquid.
Oh, liquid.
So one's a gas, one's a liquid. Oh, hello, my love.
Hello.
How are you?
Your wife will hear.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So she's not watching.
One's a gas, one's a liquid. So 2,2-O is actually a gas, sulfur dioxide. It will be used in sparging for the bottles, and it will be used as a cover to prevent oxidation of the grapes whilst they're waiting to be crushed. Okay? 2,2,4, potassium metabisulfate, is a liquid that generally gets used in the ferment process, in the ferment or maturation process. Okay.
And it still does the same job.
It is exactly the same job. Also a preservative, another preservative that is used but is never really claimed on the label, which is really odd, is ascorbic acid, 300.
What's that?
Ascorbic acid, it is actually a grape acid. It's technically an antioxidant rather than a preservative, so therefore it's it's not listed as preservative. But if you don't have ascorbic acid, with particularly 2,2-O and with particularly 2,2-O, the 2,2-O doesn't work quite as effectively.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So common preservatives for wines are the 2,2-O sulfur dioxide, which is used as a gas. The 2,2,4 is used as a solution. And what do you reckon? Why would you use preservatives? Have a guess. Why would you use preservatives?
Preserve the wine.
Preserve the wine, but what are you preserving it from? What are the things that affect wine particularly?
Oxygen.
Oxygen's a very oxygen, and what's the other thing that happens in wine that will cause a wine to spoil?
Giving it a living thing.
Giving it a living thing.
Yeast.
Oh, yeast. All right. Yeah.
Right. So it is there to inhibit microbial, what they call microbial intervention, which means growing of microbes, yeasts or.
So you don't want your yeast to keep.
Yeah, you don't want
growing
your yeast to
and
go.
getting eaten and.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that would also cause it to keep
Fermenting.
fermenting. Yeah.
Even with there's no sugars, if you get a
I
high
couldn't
amount
get
of
brewing
yeast,
out of my head. Stop brewing.
if you have a high amount of yeast in your wine, like if you have a wine that has got a lot of dead leaves and dead yeast in it, even when they're autolyzing and breaking down, there is a chance, particularly with heat, that yeast will come back to life and start breaking down products like glycerol,
Yeah.
which can turn up in wines. Particular tartrates will be able to break down, and therefore creates that horrible green effect that you can sometimes get through wine.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's what sulfites are used for, to stop that and to stop oxidation. Okay.
Try not to pour this in Andrew's lap.
No, that's fine. It's not the first time I've had wine poured in my lap. So that's the basic reason we use sulfites. Also, the sulfites are protectorants for extended aging as well. So if you have ever drunk a bottle of Bordeaux and you crack it early and pour it into a glass, the first thing you're going to get is a slight whiff of egg coming off it. And it is always there. But within doing that, it goes really quickly. But it is there. And that is because when they're making Bordeaux wines, they're making to age for 30 years. What's the average age that we were talking about? Australian wines can age for
5 years.
15.
Oh, 15.
15 years.
We based it on 10, but I think
We based it on 10, but it's a really well-made wine. You can go to 15.
Yeah.
20 years, you are then beginning to roll that dice in a really hard way.
So,
by the way, any winemakers out there that disagree with me, I'm terribly sorry. That's just a personal thing that I've found over the years, and over many years of doing it. But I've had a couple of 20-year-old wines, and I've had one from an eminently probably the best or second best producer in Australia that was it had just gone. And I had a 20-year-old wine from a producer who was quite a good producer, like not in the top 10, but it was still excellent. And the reason was the differentiator was he used a bit more sulfites in his wine.
So when people come in and because I get a few people saying they're allergic to sulfites, and they always buy the little packets that we have at the counter. I'm still not sure what they are, but
So
they put it in the wine and apparently it nullifies the sulfites.
So we have a thing called SO to go. So SO2 being what we're talking about, the 220.
Yeah.
So the SO2 Go, the product in that is food grade hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide mixing with sulfide creates sulfuric acid. We'll show you the point. So we sell these for $1. We sell the sprays for $5. One sachet goes into one bottle of wine, one 750ml bottle of wine. 2 sprays goes into a glass of wine.
Standard glass.
Standard glass.
You do not spray it on your tongue before you.
Yes, the story that I was actually at the boat shed one time down in Maroochydore, Cotton Tree. Anyway, Cotton Tree, and I saw a girl and she ordered a glass of red wine. She got the spray. She went and drank the wine. And
that's when you know you're in class.
Yeah, I went over there and it was actually my mother's birthday. I remember that because we took my mother out to the birthday party that day to there. Myself and my wife and my mother were there. And I went, oh God, I sell that stuff. And I was like, oh, she's got that stuff out. I sell that stuff. And she sprayed it on her tongue and I went, oh, I'll be back in a second. And I went over there and I said, hi, how you doing? Look, that spray you're using, I sell it. It's actually 2 sprays into the glass and then swirl the glass to allow it to mix through. Putting it on your tongue is not the way to do it. And it would have been absolutely fine. Everyone would have just gone, oh, that's a shame. But no, her husband burst into guffawing laughter in the middle of the restaurant and I was the bad guy. So don't help out. So, but essentially what this is food grade hydrogen peroxide, H2O2, which combines with sulfur, which combines with the SO2 to create sulfuric acid. However, because it is so volatile, it comes off as a gas. So there's not enough sulfur in there to create sulfuric acid and actually denature the wine, but there is enough in there that will break down and turn into a gas, which is swell. So that is literally how this works, and this is used by winemakers. Winemakers, if they've over-sulfited their wines, which can happen, because in some cases some Australian producers, particularly for the large productions, will do 250 parts per million of sulfuring of their wines, realise they've overdone it, and they will actually add H2O2 into the wine to clarify it and reduce down, to reduce the sulfite down.
Did you find out whether today's a leaf day or a fruit day?
No, it's shockingly esoterically written.
What do you mean?
Well,
it's just a calendar.
I looked at the
I think he said I couldn't find it.
I took the first 2 pages on the Google and then I couldn't see it immediately, so I gave up and
Alright.
it still tastes alright. Like, it must be a leaf day.
Must be.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, fruit day.
fruit day.
Fruit days that makes it taste better, but it's not before 11 now. So.
Every day. It
Oh,
starts and finishes at 11.
Alright.
It's before 11 in some way.
Yeah.
There's 24 hours in the world. Like,
Don't
Maybe
feed them after
your
midnight.
world.
yeah.
Yeah. So, back to what I was saying.
Where's the pumpkin? I didn't get any of that.
Oh, it's a shame.
I think pumpkins in
Pumpkin's
the
on this one.
Oh, they're different.
No, they're the same.
No, they're different.
Are they? Okay. I've got pumpkin in mine. Okay. So, common preservative used is 220, as we said.
It's a leaf day.
It's a leaf day. Oh, that's pretty impressive that the wine
That's
tastes
right.
quite
There
good.
you go.
You must be a biodynamics person.
Yeah, you're in the groove.
You said the word esoteric
Your
correctly.
chakra is.
Chakras are in line.
I did have an astrology reading the other day. Apparently I have one.
What, in astrology?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you ever
Fuck
read
me,
Have you ever seen the last Douglas Adams books they had for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
No, they lost me after like book
Oh,
10,000.
it's excellent. There's actually a group of aliens on a planet out of Pluto, and they're like, they unfortunately they follow astrology really, really well. And they're hyper advanced, and they follow astrology, and then they get to Earth.
It takes like 9 years for their planet to rotate the sun.
No. They actually said, we're having a bad time at the moment, you know, and they read their astrological sign, and it's like, with Earth rising in the sector of Mercury, you are going to have a really bad time. So they took their great technology and destroyed the Earth. Anyway, so that aside,
Say it's having a bad
say
day.
a bad day to destroy the earth.
We're sorry for downgrading you, Pluto. Please forgive us.
Yeah, actually, I am sorry about that. It's my wife's birth planet.
What?
Scorpio. Pluto is their planet.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so all wine contains sulfur at about 10 parts per million. About 250 parts per million can be added in the winemaking process, depending on the philosophy of the winemaker. So, when do you reckon you can use sulfites?
In the barreling?
No, yeah, good point. Yeah, so in the maturation process,
Yeah.
if you want to stop malolactic fermentation, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is to stop ferment.
Yep.
But at bottling, I guess you could add it.
Bottling, you definitely do. You sparge into the bottle a little bit of sulfur dioxide to remove the oxygen. Yeah, to remove oxygen and prevent.
Is that with
microbes.
the little
The
caps?
Yeah, that's with the caps and the corks and all the rest of it. You can also use it once you've picked the grapes. You put them into your container. You take them to the winery. The press is not ready there yet, so you put a gas over the top of it to stop oxygen from affecting the grape. So therefore, there's no micro-oxidation occurring.
It wouldn't be much, but unless you've broken the skins and stuff, I guess. So
Well, 2 tons.
ripping them off and sitting in a vat is
2
gonna
tons
break
of
them.
grapes. Yeah, remember how rosé is made? Just put the grapes on top of each other, it comes out. So what they use as an alternative is they can use dry ice.
How much juice would they lose just getting them from picking over to the...
Depending how bumpy the field is, yeah, a fair bit.
They'd be losing a lot of...
Well, they won't lose it; they'll keep it, and then it all gets put into the.
because I'm thinking that it's sitting in a crate.
No,
they're
it's
not
not a crate.
sealed.
It's a sealed plastic container. 2 tons worth.
Mm.
So they use dry ice to put over the top, to put a layer of dry ice over the top to stop oxygen from oxidizing the grapes.
That's pretty expensive though. Like.
Yeah, it is, but this is why they do it.
Yeah.
We're talking about preservative free now, so. Organic, preservative free. You've already paid a lot of money for the organic side of it. You want it preservative free, so you therefore use dry ice. Put it over the top. You can use it before ferment if you want in the must to make sure that you're only at low levels, really low levels, to stop wild yeast from beginning to ferment early. You can use it post ferment to allay or stop ferment to finish it early to leave sugar in the wine. So you literally stop the ferment early and then fine it out. You can use it during maturation in the barrels or in the tank or whatever you want to do to prevent malolactic fermentation occurring, and prior to bottling, which is the sparging. So at all these points you can use sulfur dioxide.
Is there a test that they can measure
The sulfur
Can
level.
they actually measure the sulfur levels, or do they just taste it? And
In
go,
fact,
it's
no,
too much?
they every winery has a lab, and that lab will do tests at every stage in the process to make sure that the acidity is right. Because remember, we talked about adding acid.
Yeah.
To make sure that the alcohol is not too high, because you might have to reverse osmosis the alcohol out.
Can they do that just there on site?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's expensive though.
Oh, okay.
Really expensive.
So what would they do instead? Could they just add more juice in?
You mean
break it
to
down?
remove alcohol?
Well, you can't remove it, but you could dilute it by adding more.
You can add water.
Well, you don't want to do that.
Oh, you can.
But you could add another lot of juice in that hasn't been fermented as long, couldn't you?
Yeah, but then you're leaving sugar in there.
I suppose. So it could start fermenting all over again.
Yeah. So,
This is why I'm not a winemaker.
yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is that it's a good idea, but that's exactly what will happen. Is that you're just creating more sugars. So,
I wouldn't want to add water to it, because you lose your flavour, wouldn't you?
well, you dilute it, which is reducing alcohol.
Yeah. But
You
you
could-
also dilute the flavour.
Should we try the preservative free now?
Yeah. We can reverse osmosis.
Pat's thirsty. He wants to try
Sorry,
that.
sorry.
Oh no, I just meant like. It was
No,
on
I
the-
can too. So come
Yeah.
on, pour it in your drink.
Right. So you can reverse osmosis, which is going to be expensive,
Yeah.
but it's the only way to get alcohol down.
Hey mom.
Mum?
Hi, Pat, Mum. Okay.
Where does it say Pat's mum's on?
Oh, it says on my phone.
Yeah.
Ah,
Then fortune.
mine's not working, obviously.
No, just redo it.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, that's the way to
I
reduce.
missed it.
Yeah, to reduce alcohol down. That's how you can do it. But so now we are talking about organics and preservative frees now. So how do you reckon preservative-free would work? Because you
Free
can't
preservative.
use. I've just told you can't use sulfites in any of those points.
There's no
those
added
pressure
sulfites.
points. No added sulfites there. So how would you
How can they
do anything
yeah.
else?
So what about natural sulfites that are already there?
They're already there. You can't do anything about it.
So they can still say no preservatives
Yep. No preservatives added,
added.
which is preservative-free.
I'm sure I've seen some other ones that are just like organic. Oh no, they say minimal preservatives.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
May I ask someone to cover the front because I need to take down something for a customer?
Is there someone there that needs serving right now?
No.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay, just down the front, please.
Okay, so the best way to do it would be, and this is where it gets a little bit finicky. So what are we trying to prevent? Micro-oxidation or oxidation.
Yeah.
We're trying to prevent microbial integration.
Are you trying
Hello,
to
come on in.
Hey Nick, are you done?
No, we're still drinking. Come on in.
I'll go to the toilet first.
Okay.
Now that we know that on camera, that's great.
Any help?
Good to see.
Mick needs to go to the toilet.
Michael's just gone to the toilet.
Michael's
that's
our fantastic rep. He brings his headness.
Yeah, he does headless wines for us.
He brought Yarran to us last week.
Yeah. he
Oh,
did.
Yarran's going next year.
Oh yeah, that's right. Big thing. Yarran is actually organic in conversion as of next year, and in the next 3 to 4 years they're going to be fully organic. Hopefully that doesn't mean they're going to put their prices up.
And if they're watching, I've probably had enough of us last week, if anything. But
Yeah.
thanks for the feedback on it.
Yeah.
It was good. We
It
learned
was
a few
good.
things.
Good to see Sam actually contacted us and talked about anything we got wrong, which is really good because we really do need feedback on things like that. Particularly because we were right about the lower acidification. There's very little.
For the Chardonnay.
Yep.
Yeah.
For the Sauvignon. Remember we said.
Oh, Sauvignon. Yeah.
And the Chardonnay we said had got some really big texture. It had some mallow. It had
We
some
were right on that
staving. So we had staves rather than tea bags like we were talking about.
We were wrong on the amount of grapes picked up. They pick
a lot less,
than
considerably
most,
less from what I gather. So yeah, it was good to see Sam contacting us about that and letting us know about it. So very happy. To see that. It was good.
The company seemed
So,
happy with.
Well, they said. Well, put it this way.
They didn't make any complaints.
Well, no, not really. But I mean, he understood that we're all drinkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said he was looking forward to it.
He's looking to having a party with us. That was good.
And then Mick told me how much Pinot Grigio we drank through the year. A little scary.
Yeah, it is scary.
I told Jason last night and we worked it out that
You should be able to
percentage
find.
of that might have been us.
Yeah, you should be able to find the percentage of Pinot Grigio sold in Australia and work out your percentage of that.
Lots.
Yeah.
Large.
Yeah.
So just to recap for Michael, today is a
Preservative free.
leaf day.
Oh, leaf day. Yep.
Oh,
So this might be
leaf
quite
day.
as bright as you're expecting.
okay. So the biodynamic. Okay.
Yep. Okay, so we were talking about prior to bottling, putting in. So what could you put in replacement for it?
For a preservative.
Yeah.
This one?
Oh, I didn't realise. I didn't see that.
I don't know. I just imagine more like alcohol with.
No. Any noble gas. Argon.
Argon.
Argon would be is a replacement for. So if you're doing a preservative-free wine, you need to sparge with SO2 to fill up that air gap, because that's what the air gap is.
Yeah.
So you put sulfur dioxide in there to fill that air gap up. Okay.
Argon's also completely in
There's
there.
also an inert gas.
So-
So again, putting that in there. Again, SO2 costs this much. Argon costs this much.
Yeah.
So you'll actually even get sometimes a nitrogen argon mix, but it's still really, really expensive. So again, it's more expensive to do preservative free for that particular point. So we've now got the pressure
It's also
points.
used for welding aluminium.
Yeah, of course.
Just in case you
Oh.
want to know. So,
How do you weld aluminium with the argon?
argon's the gas you use, the shielding gas to keep the oxygen
Oh,
away
cool,
from
yeah,
the
that's what I thought. Yeah, okay, right. Yeah. Something they go, it's not flammable.
No.
So we now have the bottling sorted out. We have when it's sitting in there with the dry ice covered off.
Yeah.
So what other points would you use sulfur? Where you use sulfur, what would you not use?
Um,
Post ferment, and maturation is the other 2
Yeah,
points.
maturation. Yeah.
So what is it that actually causes the problems for post-ferment and maturation?
Post-ferment. Well, probably keeping oxygen again.
Oxygen,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, if you keep your tanks topped up and your barrels full, you should be fine.
Dropping hoses into the top of your barrel. Probably
That'd be bad. Probably the biggest thing.
When
though,
does that ever happen though?
Oh,
Like,
so
honestly.
often, so often. Actually, the best one I've ever seen is tank. Attach hose here, pump to barrel over there. Cool.
Something come
Tank. Okay, can you change now? Sure. The guy's gone over. He's undone hose A.
Oh,
He's then taken it over and undone lock B without attaching hose A to it, and the pressure that came out of that, it was horrific. I sat there watching it as it just covered the floor, and I'm like, I can't do anything about this.
as he pays the $1,000.
Thousands and thousands of dollars. Okay, so we've actually talked about, so the pressure point here, pressure point here. Probably the major thing that you can do to prevent microbial intervention would be what?
Without using... Cause we're talking,
Without using sulfur?
Without using sulfur.
What can you do? Remove as much yeast and microbes out of it so you can filter it. Filtration is where it comes in.
I
When
think
you
you
start
just go shoot.
No, go away, nasty little microbe.
Yeah.
No, it's
So you
filtration.
wouldn't just take it from the top down and...
Yeah, no, that's fine. But you
So you
remember,
get-
you still have some colloids, so you can either do one of the things, you can cold crash it, so that the whole yeast, the whole colloids fall to the bottom, and then just rack off to
Oh,
about.
can you sieve it? Can you drop like a real
Yeah.
fine...
That's bentonite.
filter.
Absolutely, that's exactly what you do. You drop.
I knew I was on.
You drop this clay filtration called bentonite through it. That removes all the proteins out. You might need to filter it using a really tiny filter to remove all of the small yeasts out. And we're talking to 4 micrometers now. And so you can actually filter out a lot of it that way. So all of these points are really, if you can remove all of the microbes out, you don't need to add sulfur in to stop the microbes from growing. This is really important. However, I'm going to tell you a story which is
Can
absolutely...
they pasteurize
Yes,
as such?
absolutely.
Heat it up to
So
a certain point and then rock it.
at this point, when you go to bottling, you can pass it through a tube that is heated to 50 degrees centigrade, which will actually pasteurize the wine before it goes in the bottle. Here's a couple of problems. Every time you do something to a wine to remove something, you're removing something else.
Yeah, so you're changing flavours.
You're changing the flavour profile. It's a bit of a gamble to do. If you know exactly what you're doing, absolutely fine. But if you're pasteurising a wine, and let's just say it's a Cabernet, you pasteurize a Cabernet, that means your tartrate crystals are going to fall out quicker. You're going to get a lot more flop coming out earlier. So if it's an aging wine, it's going to actually get that flock line of tartrate crystals out quickly. If you don't do that though, and you don't sulfite, and you don't actually add sulfite, what you're going to have at the end of the day is you're going to have a wine that is, as soon as it gets, if it's stored poorly in any sort of manner, it's more likely to become reactive again, and the wine will get stuffed earlier.
Yeah.
So, with the technology that's happening today, preservative-free is much more possible because you're far better at removing microbes out of wine and preventing oxidation of the wine. You can do it, but it is expensive.
So that's more of a modern day thing with like
Two on
the access we have to
That's
technology
number 2
now.
that
It's
we
not like so much a natural
Really on number
process.
3.
It's more of a it's actually probably an unnatural intervention in some.
You are intervening, but you're intervening to try and remove the natural
Yeah,
process
smell
from
that.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
which is
what it is, yeah, taste.
unnatural by process of.
Well, okay. We've
gone.
now gone, but we're talking about organics and we're talking about preservative free.
Yeah,
Two
yeah,
separate
yeah,
things.
okay, yeah. So, but this one claims to be
This is organic.
organic and preservative free and
preservative-free.
vegan,
So Tampa Lane,
and also can't be drunk by pregnant women.
oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. I know a few pregnant women that disagree with that. Okay, So this is the Tamburlaine Shiraz. This is organic, so therefore it's followed all the levels of organic we talked about beforehand. It's also preservative free, so there's no added preservatives added into it. They are totally reliant on making sure that the wine is protected at every stage of the ferment, and then has no or very few microbial agents in there when it comes to bottling. That being said, though, if it also said vegan on there,
It does.
that also means that it hasn't been fined and filtered, which means that's an issue. Now, it's an issue because that means that wine generally, I would not imagine it would last a hell of a long time. So you drink it now, you know what I'm saying.
Most preservative-frees are like that, aren't they?
Yeah, most preservative-free wines drink within 2 to 3 years. After that, you are really rolling that dice again, which is not a good dice to roll. And that's just the nature of the beast.
I've
You
tasted
should be able to
a few
finish a
old
bottle of wine in 3 years, though. Like,
Well, it depends how much they make. They make so much of it that it doesn't.
oh yeah, if
Sell them,
you're
they got
selling it
next
3
thing
years
coming
later,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the big part about it. You really need to be aware that if you're buying an organic wine, it's fine. If you're buying a preservative-free wine, you might need to look at the age or the vintage on it and really hope to God it's been stored correctly. Because a poorly stored bottle has got so much more potential to be off than it does anything else.
We have, that being said, we haven't had a lot of preservative-free returns. Couple, yeah, but not many.
Here's a true story for you from a few years back, not that many years back actually. Temple Brewer, who we're about to try now. Actually, we'll try to. Well, actually, firstly, let's have a look at this wine. So, what do you think of the wine? Preservative-free wine.
Mick wants to try something.
I find it
I
bright.
don't find it as intense as the other two.
Yep.
It's definitely, it is bright.
It's got a bit more body than the other two. Like,
Not body.
Like,
It's got a much more aromatic fruit flavour to it.
But softer palate. I find.
Softer palate.
I find it lingers a lot more though.
It does. It's got a lovely persistence on it. For me, though, this is actually not South Australia. This is actually the Central Ranges. So you're looking at Orange, Hunter, those kind of regions. Mudgee more than anything else, I think.
Got good acid.
Great, good acidity. It's well made, eminently.
Yeah, we're on live.
Hello, Chris. How you doing, mate? Nice to see you. Chris McKenzie, everybody, our local artist who wants to go yee-haw to everyone.
G'day. Just getting scars. My horse is outside. We're going. Sorry to interrupt.
Elephant is parked out the back.
Yes.
Don't mind me.
So anyway, as I said, it's well made. It's on point. I actually quite like it. I think it's a really lovely little wine, but it's from a cooler climate. It's not your Barossa South Australian style of red. It is Shiraz, and that's really important to know that we are looking at similar varietals here. So we want to look at the flavour profiles. Remember, terroir probably affects it more than biodynamics or organics does as well. So, what do you think?
Yeah, it's good. Like,
Good?
yeah.
Dan?
Easy going, good. I'm not getting anything that's saying it's preservative free. There's no real difference flavour-wise that says this has preservative or doesn't.
And this is the thing, is that all
probably what
wines
you want.
that are drunk young are going to show a similar character. In 10 years' time, you pull that bottle out, then you're going to see the major differences. And that's really important. Now, the story I was going to tell you about Temple Brewer. Temple Brewer has been around for years.
I'm still working through Walter's lovely
Good
offering.
God. Yeah. So Temple Brewer's been around for years and years and years. They were actually one of the leaders of the whole preservative-free movement.
Helen's jumped in. The headless is my favourite so far.
Yeah, love it. Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, I wish we'd done the friends first. Anyway, so as I said, for years they've been big. Beforehand, the only organic wines that we had were from Mudgee, which was Martin's Hill from Mudgee, Botabala, which was the first. They tasted absolutely dreadful in the first few years that we had it. They tasted muddy, earthy, and really ordinary. They're a lot better now. Don't get me wrong. I actually tried them only a couple of years back, and they were good. But my God, they were the ones that gave organics a bad name early in the piece. However, they have improved out of sight, and the whole organic movement has improved out of sight. What actually I have found though is that people like Temple Brewer, they did an organic, because they were fairly almost always organic. Rosinate is another one that's organic. They do a preservative free called the Freedom range. There's quite a few guys that are out there playing with it. But the region have to be really, really stable. You have to have a good wind going through that vineyard to make sure that it's clean. You don't want to get humidity sitting in there. You don't want to have aphid infestations. There's a lot of work to be put into a winery that is trying to be organic and preservative free. And that's a lot more work than a lot of guys can afford to do or can do. So when it comes to Temple Brewer, they've now driven their entire business to organic and preservative free. Now, what happened a few years ago, and this is a story of quite a tragic story. So their vintage came out. They were all excited. They put it in. They don't have their own bottling line. They have a bottling line that they use called Vinpack. So they actually got basically a large fuel truck turned up. But it moves great. It moves wine essentially, and they pumped out their wine into this tanker. Tanker went up, went to the bottling line, pumped out in the bottling line that went through the bottles, got put out, boxed, sent out. 3 months later, they had a 60% return rate. And they took it back and they analysed it, and they realised there was a lot of microbial intervention. For some reason, they couldn't track why their wine suddenly was off because of microbes. The yeast came alive, reinvigorated, the wine got re-fermented again. It was really, really terrible. Couldn't figure out why they were doing it. Turned out they tracked it back at every stage. They tracked it back and discovered that the tanker that was actually used hadn't been cleaned out properly, and what was left in there were yeast from the previous one, because when they'd racked off theirs, they'd racked all the way to the bottom and essentially let the tanker do the racking off for them. When the pump out occurred, they didn't clean it out properly. So they had to actually launch an insurance claim to get their money back. But that was their entire...
That's a huge insurance claim.
A huge insurance claim, and their entire vintage was wiped out for that one particular grape. It was terrible. Now, as I said, if they weren't organic preservative free, if they weren't preservative free particularly, wouldn't have mattered. Would not have mattered in the slightest. They'd have actually put it in, they'd have sparged it, everything's good, done. But because they took that additional step, this is where doing these things, which are an ethical model, into a business practice can be quite dangerous.
I do applaud them for trying to take a moral kind of stance, especially on the farming process in Australia. None of the wines we tried today has been bad.
They're great.
They're beyond par.
Yep.
Yeah, and it actually sets a really good model, and the fact that a few other wineries now are starting to follow suit, go towards that way.
Yep.
I think it's only a good thing.
Yeah. The next step beyond all of this is what they call a natural wine. I'm not going to talk about that right now. Let's not talk about it right now because
it's a
whole nother thing again. But in essence, all I can say is the guys that have decided to produce these wines have taken an enormous risk to do so. Everything from the risk they took in the vineyards, all the way to the risk they took in the production. So the vineyards for these guys over here, the production for these guys over here, the risk they took for that hopefully will pay off for them, and seems to pay off. I know that Tamburlaine and Temple Brewer are both two of my biggest selling wines. I know Hedonist...
Temple Brewer was the biggest for ages.
Yeah, it was biggest for ages, but Tamburlaine came in
and it's sort of taken
took
over a little
over.
bit. But
Headness
But I
still
haven't
does
tried
really
this.
well.
Headness
like,
is still one of my biggest selling Shiraz generally.
Yeah.
Actually, the whole range sells really well.
yeah.
And Koleski is obviously a really excellent one as well, which is done. It's got great.
Classic's got a lovely little GSM called Clary.
Clary,
Yeah.
it's stunningly good.
It's just another one of those wines that I'm really happy to push because it's such a good wine.
Yeah, it's just excellent.
And
So these guys
good
have
bang
taken
for buck too.
taken some.
Good bang for buck.
Yeah,
given
definitely.
the
They use
processes.
the same really expensive bottles
Yeah.
for their cheaper wine, so they do.
what is with the shape of their bottle? Like, because actually, really, the aesthetic it's aesthetically pleasing for me. Like the shape of the bottle.
But it's so much heavier. This is
It looks like an old school like bullet.
It's a Bordeaux
deep
bottle,
pump. It's
isn't it?
got to be
Yeah, deep punt. Yeah. But this the angle on the neck.
Oh, this angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It looks-
Yeah. Is that a specialised shaped bottle or is it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Most of your bottles are going to get at least now. That's actually made by an Italian company, which is shipped into Australia a lot. That's a Bordeaux bottle. That is a Burgundy bottle, I think. Burgundy?
Like, it's not as quite as light as a
bottle.
Burgundy.
Yeah. Well, it's the same sort of shape.
Yeah.
That one, I think it's a. I'm not even sure what the hell it is.
It's cool because I reckon you can
custom.
you can do
custom one,
you can
yeah.
do the foundations out of a house with that because it looks like they would stack on each
Do
other
you want to
quite
find out
well.
what he was about, Joe? Sorry.
Why not? It's not like I'm working or anything.
Well,
Cody, what do you want?
Helen said, "Thank you, thank you, Helen."
thank you, Helen.
Thanks, Helen.
We have one more thing to go. So, I had actually some other notes, but I think we've pretty much covered everything off. There's a difference between free and bound sulfites. So, free sulfites and bound sulfites. If a wine is listed as 140 parts per million sulfites, you need to determine whether it's free or not, because sulfites get bound into wine pretty quickly, and therefore you will actually determine pretty quickly, and when it's bound, it doesn't affect anyone. So the reason that people come to me and talk to me about preservative-free wines is because I drank a wine and I reacted badly to it, therefore I'm allergic to sulfites. 2 quick tests. Can you eat eggs? If you can eat eggs, sulfites aren't a problem.
Well, they're full of sulfites.
Yep.
I didn't have
Chocolate.
no idea.
That's what it smells like.
Absolutely chocolate.
That's what it smells like.
If you drink white wine over red wine, and you get it from only red wine, sulfites aren't your problem. There are more sulfites in white wine than there are in red wine.
Really?
Yep. By a factor of 2. It's huge. Because, again, remember we were talking about clarification and things like that too? Again, same sort of thing. Finally, if you are allergic to tannin, it's a thing. If you're allergic to tannin, it's more of a thing than anything else.
Can you be allergic to tannin and not the juice, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Because tannin is a separate component from the juice.
Yeah.
The juice is sugar water, essentially.
Yeah.
The tannin is actually a pyrethine, which you can be allergic to. The other part is, if your diet has been lacking in folate, and I read this from Rosine one time, they sent through a thing. If you're low in folate, you are far more susceptible. Lettuce, spinach, greens. Yeah,
So, leafy greens.
So, leafy greens.
So many.
Yeah, you.
Yeah.
If you are low in those particularly, you are more susceptible to a histamine reaction caused by sulfates.
So ironically, if you're a pregnant woman, you should just be fine because
Yeah.
you're taking folic acid.
So pregnant women should.
So they should take that off the label then.
Yeah, no.
So,
I think it's the alcohol part that more concerns me.
Yeah.
so
Possibly.
you're talking free and
I know, my
locked in sulfates.
Yeah. So free and locked in sulfates.
This will only work on the free sulfates.
This will take the
right?
free stuff out.
Yeah.
When we talk about sulfites, though.